Defence Minister Manohar Parikkar is in Washington where he signed the path-breaking logistics exchange agreement with the US. I have with me Bharat Bhushan, the editor of Cash News, to discuss the consequences of this very important agreement which is taking place. So Bharat, what is LEMOA?
Well, LEMOA stands for Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. It is similar to what the US signs with its allies called the Logistics Support Agreement or LSA. But because it has India-specific text, it's been given a different name. What it entails is that the two militaries, the US military and the Indian military, would be able to cooperate with each other. They would be able to source fuel, spares, food stores from each other's bases as and when needed, and they wouldn't have to pay for it. They would square it off through a barter deal. That is, if US ships are in this region, they need refueling, they need some food stores, they need spares, they would get it without much paperwork from Indian naval bases. And when Indian ships need fuel, let's say on the high seas, they would be able to take it from a US tanker if it happens to be in that vicinity and not have to pay for it immediately. This can be squared off later. So the idea is to exchange logistics support in situations that are of common interest. So it could be during joint military exercises, joint naval exercises. It could be while sending ships on humanitarian missions for disaster relief, etc.
So for example, like we have the Malabar exercise, which we do jointly with the US and now Japan. So what happens during, what happens in that? How does the refueling take place for our viewers?
Well, it is not as if refueling was not taking place up to now. Let's say a US ship is passing through Indian coastal waters and runs out of fuel. It could come to, let's say, the Cochin naval base and ask for fuel and buy that fuel. But it required a lot of paperwork. You would require permissions from Ministry of External Affairs, from Ministry of Defence. By the time these permissions came and the bureaucratic rigmarole is over, a lot of time would have been wasted. All that time will be cut short now. These things will happen automatically.
So, but why did the US? Why was the US so keen on that India signed this agreement?
Well, US has been saying that India should sign three foundational agreements. One is the Logistics Support Agreement, or LEMOA, as it is called in the Indian case. The other one is called CISMOA, Communications Interoperability and Security Memorandum of Agreement, which allows access to each other's, let's say, encrypted data in defense systems. And the third is called BECA, or Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Cooperation, which means they would have access to our satellite imagery, our geospatial data, which is used on our defense platforms. Now, the reason the US wanted India to sign these three foundational agreements is because it said unless you sign these, you will not get high-end defense technology transferred to India. They would not be able to transfer that technology. So you sign these three agreements as we signed with our other allies, and then you can have access to high-end defense technology from the US. These proposals are not new, they've existed for a long time. The previous government, the UPA government, particularly Defence Minister at that time, A.K. Antony, was opposed to it because their fear was that these agreements would lead to a de facto military alliance with the US and India would lose its strategic neutrality.
But that is also the criticism which is coming in now from especially the left and the Congress. So how far are these, is this criticism valid?
That criticism might be valid if all the three agreements are signed. As of now, only the Logistics Support Agreement or its Indian version, LEMOA, has been signed. I don't think it impinges on India's sovereignty. All it does is facilitates exchange of logistics support. And there could be situations, for example, where, let's say, there's a war situation and US is in a military conflict with a friend of India, theoretically, let's say, Iran. Then would India give logistics support to American warships or to American aircraft? I think there is a provision that such things will be done on a case-by-case basis. So even if when the agreement is in place, India reserves the right to say no. Now, theoretically, that sounds good. However, when you say no in a situation where you have an agreement in place, saying no would also be seen as an unfriendly act. There would be questions in US Congress. There would be questions in the US media. And it could create complications. But if you say per se, does it lead to curtailment of sovereignty? I don't think so.
Will it lead to more antagonism between India and the Chinese relationships between India and China?
Well, China has been saying for a long time that this logistics support agreement is an attempt by US to create a mini NATO in this region with India, Philippines, and some other countries being part of it. But they would be expected to say that. Don't think the main issue with LSA is China. As far as China is concerned, it's good for India to sign LSA because after all, we are in strategic competition with China. Although we still want our development goals not to be affected by any adversarial relationship. So we want to maintain our development objectives, get Chinese investment, get Chinese technology for development of Indian economy. But at the same time, there is a competition. In this competition, India is helped by signing LEMOA with the US.
Yeah.
I think the real problem lies to the west of India, where India and the US are not on the same page. India and US are not on the same page in Pakistan. They're not on the same page in Afghanistan. And US policy in West Asia is divergent from India's policy towards West Asia. So if you want deeper strategic ties with US, then internationally you have to have a commonality of issues and you have to be on the same page strategically, which we are not at present.
But there seems to be some kind of realignment. For example, US wants India to play a more proactive role in Afghanistan. US has also recalibrated its policy towards Syria, for example. So do you think that there can be...
I think these policies have to unfold because only till a few months ago, US has set up a quadrilateral dialogue with US, Afghanistan, Pakistan and China on handling the Taliban. So you were giving China a role in Afghanistan and not consulting India on it at all. Only when the quadrilateral dialogue went nowhere, that now you're saying that you will start a trilateral dialogue with India. So let's see how that develops. On Syria, US has been less than honest about what's been going on in Syria. I mean, who knows who created ISIS? Now, latest information that is coming out is this use of sarin gas, for which President Assad was accused, was actually being supplied by Turkey to Syrian rebels who also had US support.
Yeah.
So, how much the US is willing to acknowledge past mistakes in Syria and move forward in a direction that stabilizes Syria remains to be seen. And what happens in Syria? Does India have a role in it? I don't know whether India has a role in Syria. India has a general interest in stability in West Asia. If West Asia stabilizes and we come on the same page on West Asia, we come on the same page on Afghanistan and on Pakistan, then what is the harm in improving strategic ties with the US? There's only advantage to be had.
What is the advantage of this particular agreement, the exchange agreement for India?
Well, what it means is we are already doing naval exercises with them, and very complicated naval exercises where all kinds of military platforms are participating from both sides. It makes it an easier operation. It also means that perhaps in the Make in India program in defense, we would be able to get certain other kinds of technologies. But let me also add that even without LEMOA or the logistics support agreement, defense technology was being transferred. Without this agreement being signed, US had already become the largest defense supplier of India. Yeah. Not only that, we also managed to get sensitive technologies, the C-17 aircraft, the P-8I aircraft, and we've also put on table development of jet engines and aircraft carrier technology. So these things were already happening and we also have a defense technology and trade initiative for joint research, joint development and joint production of defense technology. All these things may get facilitated a little bit, but I don't think this was a prerequisite for cooperation in defense technology or for getting defense technology.
But for our viewers, so US recently announced India as a major defense partner. So was it linked to this, the signing of this particular agreement?
In April this year, we had indicated our intention to sign LEMOA, and when Aston Carter came to Delhi, and now it's been signed. Maybe it has something to do with it, but as I said, this defense cooperation agreement with the US was growing irrespective of LEMOA.
But does this agreement confine itself to the naval forces, or will there be a convergence or logistical support for the other wings like the Air Force or the Army?
Well, Navy is the biggest beneficiary as of now because our ships also go around the world. We don't have naval bases or military bases abroad. The US has hundreds of them all over the globe. So Indian Navy traveling in those waters, distant waters, will take advantage, I suppose, of the logistics support agreement. As far as the Air Force is concerned, I think it's going to be only a marginal beneficiary. We have a joint exercise called the Red Flag exercise held in Alaska. So I suppose when Indian fighter jets are participating in that exercise, they would need refueling, they would need spares, so on and so forth. US will be disproportionately more or a greater beneficiary of this agreement than India would be, given our size, given our reach, given our global presence, military presence.
But does it also entail that the US will set up bases in India, like many people are fearing?
No, it does not entail the US setting up any bases here. I think the Defence Ministry has already clarified that. What it would entail, though, is that they would set up warehouses for spares, some kind of stores for equipment. And these warehouses and stores, under whose control would they be? They would be under American control. There would be American personnel manning them, because these could be high technology materials and high technology equipment, and they would need to be controlled properly by US personnel. So to that extent, yes, US personnel would be present in India because they would have to protect their technology and their warehouses. But military bases, no, it does not entail military bases.
So finally, why are we so reluctant about SESMOA and BECA, the other two agreements, which the US is really very keen on?
I think the people who are unhappy with it are really the defense forces, because they think that SESMOA would give access to the US military of encrypted boxes, encrypted technology that is used on Indian defense platforms. That technology is either developed by India or belongs to, let's say, some other countries from where we have sourced it and we've got IPR agreements with them. We do not want to give access to anybody else, because that would be a violation of that agreement. And similarly, India wants to preserve its encrypted technology. As far as BECA is concerned, that would give access to geospatial data and satellite imagery that India generates by itself. So there's a reluctance in the defense forces to share it with all and sundry without giving serious thought to what that might entail. So I think for signing SESMOA and BECA, we would need far more widespread discussions within the Defence Ministry itself before India moves forward on them.
Thank you so much, Bharat, for this wonderful explainer on what LEMOA means for us.